Hello.
Well, hello.
Hi.
Starting your video now because you're on.
Okay.
Hi. Thank
How
you
are
so
you?
much. I'm good. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm a little nervous, so I really appreciate it. Let's just get started here. So welcome to my show. I wanted to say, first of all, thank you so much for everything you've done and inspired me and taught me and the world. I want to know, yep, I got mine too. I got a few of them. I want to know, first of all, how long have you been living a vegan lifestyle? How long have you been vegan?
I've been 50 years plus.
Wow, amazing. How old were you when you started living a plant-based lifestyle, and what inspired you?
Well, I experimented when I was in college for one semester as economizing on my budget, you might say, for food. It was very skimpy, totally not exactly a healthy approach. But when I was 29, I moved under the influence of several practitioners, Dr. Warmbrand, a naturopath doctor, and also Dr. Norman Walker. And those people had my initial influence. Dr. Warmbrand was a gastroenterologist. I had all kind of digestive disorders, and of course, and was lifestyle individual was Dr. Walker, and I ended up getting his $400 at that time. Right now it's 2,000. Juicer was a monster to operate, to put it mildly, and
yeah.
And then about a year later, I ended up joining Anne Wigmore. I was at that time in one of the top corporate environments in the computer industry, consultant developing systems for places like Apollo projects, Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory, simulating war games and other kind of things. It just felt not right. So I ended up dropping out, telling them that I need a sabbatical, and I had to figure out what life was all about, because I lost the passion and the joy for that industry. And when I lose passion, it means time to move on. I'm basically very much driven by passion. So I go through a lot of changes in my life.
How old are you now?
I'm 83, heading on to 84, and youthing, saging into ageless.
Yes. Okay, so I want to know, do you believe that everyone on Earth can thrive and be healthy eating a plant-based lifestyle, no matter where they're from, no matter their ancestors? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I would put it in another way. Nobody's going to be healthy without a vegan diet. And this is well attested by research by a huge team of medical doctors. It's called Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, or PCRM.org. These are made up of basically vegan practitioners, and their posture is that not only is a well-chosen whole food-based diet is not only supplies all the nutrients, but also anything contrary is contrary to good health. And it's proven out in terms of endurance. You can look at Guinness Book of Records in terms of endurance. It's made up of nothing but vegans. As far as overall wellness and basically incidence of, like, for instance, of CV19. It's pretty much zero within the vegan population, unless they're on a processed food vegan, which is not at all uncommon. At Hippocrates Health Institute, we have about 60% of our clients that come to us are vegans, because they haven't modified themselves into lifestyle postures. So they think by eating just anything that is non-animal protein is going to keep you healthy. And it's a whole lifestyle approach. So basically, yes, anybody can get into it, but sad to say, less than 6% of the population are vegan, and the percentage of raw food is even much smaller. So we're not even probably at 1% as far as approach toward enzymatic nutrition. people are addicted, and basically diet is the #1 drug of choice to numbing yourself. It's the slow suicide posture. It's also the one that's going to make you an old dude or old gal before your time is up.
I completely agree. I completely agree. I'm almost 40, and I've been eating raw vegan for over 10 years now, and I'm getting younger every single day.
Good for you.
Yeah, every single day.
Yes,
what you're saying is so true.
Beautiful example. And
thank you. Listen, I learned a lot from your book, as a lot of people have. I mean, honestly, meeting you and talking to you is one of my dream come true. It's a dream come true for me. So thank you so much for taking time. Yeah, I have mine too. And I wanted to ask you, first of all, I want to inspire everyone to please get this book, Survival in the 21st Century. It is literally an encyclopedia on how to live. It's not just about food, it's about the lifestyle. And so how long did it take you to write this incredible piece of work?
Well, what motivated me is the fact that I knew nothing about health. I knew nothing about fitness. I knew nothing about survival or any of these topics. I was, you might say, a technocrat, basically a thinker, a headspace, a theoretical mathematician. Nuclear physics was my background. I taught college for several years, mathematics. So, and I had no knowledge of the human body. So it was a major start with Anne. I first, like I said, I got into veganism before Anne. And then when I joined Anne Wigmore's Rising Sun Christianity, well, it was interesting in the sense that I signed in for 3 weeks and a program. And during that time, I was always very driven to volunteer to do things. So she saw, you know, what a useful individual this Viktoras could be. So she invited me to join her facilities, and she gave me residency in a place called Stoughton. She had a farmhouse with 5 acres, and that was all I needed. So basically, I ended up moving into that kind of directive. But the biggest factor that drove me to it was just dissatisfaction with myself and needing to do something natural and healthier. I was quite a sick individual, and the vegan aspirations grew slowly as I developed more and more understanding. When we started when I joined Anne Wigmore, she had wheatgrass and a few sprouts, and also some green juice from the wheatgrass, and the rest of the food was cooked, and also even butter was served. You know, it was kind of a beginning of the whole search for health. She was a searcher like I. Both of us were Lithuanians, so I saw some of the inspirational results when people try to do raw foods with Anne Wigmore, and sure enough, we saw miracles happen with diabetes type 1 as well as 2, as well as also with impact of with cancer, as well as individuals with asthma and other kind of conditions. So I decided that we need more knowledge. I read the alternative books on the subject of veganism, and they weren't altogether that helpful. So I ended up being inquisitive mind. Harvard Medical Library was just around the corner, and I managed to get myself a lifetime membership into it. And I started studying basically the biological abstracts. I started with 1939, at that time, I worked my way from 1970 back all the way to 1939 biological abstracts, and then worked my way up to 75. During that whole period, it took 5 years for me.
Oh, I don't know if we lost service. Can you hear me? Not ideal. Can you hear me? I think you cut off.
Hundreds. Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
you froze for a while. I don't know if it's my service or your service. Okay, continue. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so anyways, so the proper nutritional feed, you know, in the Genesis I-29, it clearly spells out it's a plant-based nutrition, and that's the one that's going to give you the Genesis I-29 longevity, and it was related to also all kind of lifestyle factors that you had to extrapolate. But at Harvard Medical Library, I started discovering the impact of cooking, the impact of different dietary approaches, and started developing more or less like an understanding. But the big thing that drove me was watching people who have cancer and basically ended up not only surviving, but also getting better and better. And the question at that time was the late President Nixon declared war on cancer. And my belief system that the body does not make mistakes and there's no need to create war against anything that is going on in your body. And that later on, I discovered the writings of Alexis Carrel, a Nobel Prize recipient. In his book, Man the Unknown, he talks about how the human organism innovates, the key word he used, innovates strategies and basically postures and activities that lead you to survive a life-threatening experience, though at the expense of longevity and vitality. So in other words, and what was, so I thought of cancer was some sort of a positive mechanism, and I was going to find out. It took me 4 years to do that, and I established the whole mechanism of cancer, how it actually prevents you from dying from asphyxiation. When you're eating enzyme-less nutrition, what happens is that, according to John Gaynor, you move into asphyxiation, you lose up to 70% of your oxygen transport capacity, and the body utilizes several different mechanisms, and I detail all that. Number one is basically moving the garbage that is in your blood into cardiovascular system. You have over 60,000 miles of basically blood vessels, and it has a lot of storage space. When that is not able to keep up with the movement of garbage that is coming through because of enzyme-less nutrition, which is needed. The enzymes are needed for gastric digestive functions, both within the pancreas and within the stomach. So what happens, these indigested food particles get into your system and interfere with oxygen transport. So when that starts happening, another mechanism comes in, which is like using a vacuum cleaner to clean up the blood vessel. And this is an emergency one. And Dr. Otto Warburger, a Nobel Prize recipient, showed that actually, and in the 30s, he won Nobel Prize, the ultimate cause of cancer. And he showed by reducing the oxygen in the vicinity of a cell by as little as 35%, within 24 hours up to 48 hours, the cell will either die or will be mutated into cancer cell, which can now, according to University of Wisconsin research, shows that cancer cells absorb the circulatory garbage, the indigestible proteins, the indigestible fats out of your circulation at a rate 20 times faster than normal cells. So what you have is a mechanism, and the problem arises is that when you have a huge volume of cancer cells continuously building up, eventually they start interfering with not other normal biological process, and that's where doctors will diagnose you got colon cancer, you got liver cancer, you got lymphatic cancer, all these kind of things. It just represents that you have overgrown your storage capacity for these cancerous tissue. So that was a major, and I document all this from medical research and survival. And also the other thing that was of interest, and considering that most of my audience is women, and also that come to my retreats, it's primarily 90% women. So my issue was basically a tremendous amount of study in the subject of menstruation and menopause, and I showed again with documentation that basically the healthier you are, the less of a menstrual flow you are. And even my own cousin, as an example, she came to work for Anne Wigmore as a secretary, and within a period of 6 months that she stayed, and she didn't do fully the program. She just did a lot of improvements. She continued to drink some coffee and I don't know, I guess other things, but she was vegan during that time. But her menstrual went from a period of lasting 7 days to about 6 hours, which was radical improvement. Later on, Dr. Thompson within Brooklyn, it's called Brooklyn Hospital. He did studies with just vitamin C complex influence, and just within vitamin C complex alone, they were able to reduce the menstrual pads that were utilized by the nurses. Over 100 nurses were studied by as much as 60%, 66%, which is dramatic. And basically, so, you know, and one of the things that are very aging toward women is the whole menstrual flow. So basically that, and the menopause is nothing but the inability of the body to basically to clean out the garbage that ends up being built up during the month cycle and basically excreted through the menstrual flow. And so that now the body has to deal with this waste products that would happen monthly. And one of the ways it defends itself against it is through like hot flashes. And what happens when your temperature goes up by a degree or 2 or 3, you feel uncomfortable, sweaty, but it causes your enzyme activity to go up by 35% for every enzyme, for every temperature degree rise above normal. So it becomes very proactive in hiking up the immune function, which is driven by enzymes. Les Kovar, doctor, showed that actually just from orally administered enzymes that taken basically in a form of a pill, within 20 minutes, your immune function goes up by 1100%. So all of a sudden, the body just in a hyper state of cleansing detoxification, it is empowered. So enzymes not only drive digestion, your immune system, but also all your metabolic reactions are totally activated, enabled to run at a speed of lightning speed, because that's what's required. I mean, the human body has over if you take 10, and if you could do multitasking 10 things at the same time, but imagine multitasking with 10 followed by 30, by 28 zeros. That's a very big number. That's how many chemical reactions are taking place within your body every second of your body. And they're all driven by enzymes and oxygen. So when you don't get enough oxygen or you don't have enough enzymatic activity, all of a sudden your body metabolic reactions start faltering, and aging, chronic conditions, acute conditions. You have a whole bunch of adaptive mechanisms, you know, all these pain reactions that happen throughout your life, and all the symptoms that you see. They're minor symptoms initially, but you just keep neglecting. And the more you keep neglecting, they start shouting louder and louder. And before you know it, it starts developing into acute conditions, then chronic conditions. And, you know, and next thing you know, you basically are on your way out into another incarnation. So the nutrition and fasting, and basically I call it Love Meds, basically, and that's an acronym for loving longevity, loving living longevity. And then O for orgasmic organics. That means it's not just organics, but organics that have full minerals type of foods. And V for vital veganism, which means that you are very alive, very, you know, very dynamic all the way through life. Like one of my friends just returned from doing a 350-mile hike across the continent of Costa Rica. She did a documentation, and it's going to be shown. That's the founder and the president and the main teacher of the Living Light Culinary Art Institute, Sherry Sorrell. One of the most beautiful at 75. You know, she's continuously breaking records. At 74, she and her husband ran in 24 hours. 74 kilometers. So, you know, wow. Just keep on kicking and keep on doing things that are outrageous. Be excited by your life, you know, and every year should be developing more power, more potency, instead of devitalizing yourself and becoming less so. And on a vegan diet, we're utilizing, like I said, the love meds and the E for enzymatic ecology, and the meds, it stands for meditation instead of medication. E for energy, and exercise, and ever exercising. Primarily, you continuously maintain body scanning, awareness of your emotional, physical states, and continuously doing intervention when anything is faltering. But most people are asleep at the wheel. They don't know what the hell is going on with themselves. They just numb themselves with either medication or dead food that numbs them even further. And basically, they just let the symptoms pass by, and they're not getting feedback loop. We have all these sensory data that is giving you information on what the hell is going on in your body, what you're doing wrong. But most people, they just been, socially conditioned and numbed by the early childhood experience. And it's very hard to break away from these addictions because they have all kind of social, emotional, mental implications. And people they all say, well, that's who I am. That's the way I was born. That's the way I'm made to be. Yeah, bullshit, That's just, you don't want to explore. You don't want to be a person adventure. So you die, at early dates. And you've seen the impact of our lifestyles. The impact of our lifestyles is basically so dramatic. And nobody has noted it. You look at my chapter on physiognomy, okay? It's based on the Chinese Oriental method of diagnosing the genetic condition of the individual, okay? When you have long earlobes, it means you have a very strong liver and kidney. Okay, take a look at 70, 80 years ago, everybody in a school book is, the graduation school books that would come out, everybody had long earlobes. There was maybe 1% was fat. Now take a look at right now. No, 90% of the kids don't have long earlobes. That indicates we compromise genetic liver and kidney. Nose indicates strength of your lungs and your heart. Take a look. When you have wide nostrils that are horizontal, you have very strong lungs. If you don't, then it means your respiratory system is somewhat compromised and condition. And so we have these kind of genetic conditions. And Dr. Maynard Murray, one of the greatest medical doctors, researchers, there's a book available. You can get it from Hay House. It's called CSEA, like sea ocean. Sea energy agriculture. It's all about remineralizing your diet, and that means putting in all your food some good sea salt, basically, or putting sea salt into your soil, putting sea salt into your sprouting, putting into your microgreens when you're growing it. You're going to have such genetic powerful foods. He took animals that had genetic damages, like I'm talking about everybody. 90% of people are addicted and they're genetically damaged. When you put them on full spectrum of minerals, these experimental animals overcame genetic damages. Like Snell-dwarf mice were made to die within a period. They were genetically engineered to die within a period of 9 months from lung cancer. Well, when he put the group that had basically minerals that came from sea energy grown foods, and the result was 9 months go by, not a single one is dead. No cancer. 16 months go by, not a single one is dead from cancer. That's overcoming genetic damages. Your earlobes are not going to grow long, but you're going to be powerful, able to handle the toxic environment. Right now, the environment is so toxic that it's unimaginable. You should watch geoengineering watch, WATCH.org. It tells you all about what's been going on in the environment. I mean, they're spreading aluminum nanotech, boron, strontium through chemtrails over 10 to 20 million tons per year. And you're getting all this dumbing That's why the IQ has dropped well over 20 points within this last couple of years within the individuals. They're just growing stupid because the brain is being damaged by the aluminum toxemia, and just as well as other dietary factors, which are part of the average individual type of a situation. So you have a very major challenge, and we got to act as, in a very positive way. I mean, look at right now. What do we have? God, we have the Gay Pride Month. I can't believe it. We should have Vegan Pride Month. Where the hell are the vegans who are standing up and making noise about what is really important? Is sex the most important thing? No way. That's people who want to numb themselves. Just one of the many choices that you have in numbing yourself, numbing your creativity, and especially with the way it's being practiced. I mean, oh my God, it's very harmful to the system. Tantric or sacred sexuality, if you want to enjoy the highest level of bliss, at no matter what age, at 80 plus, you can enjoy multiple orgasms. You can enjoy basically the kind of experience that is not devitalizing to the individual. So we have a culture that really is asleep at the wheel. Everybody's addicted and they're all going over the cliff. And the only solution is basically work in consciousness. One of the best places to search for consciousness relief is basically, there's a podcast called Reality Revolution. So many good programs are there, and primarily the ones that are dealing with the subject that you'll find in the Psalms, in the Bible, Psalms 36, verses 10, it says, be still, and know I am God. That is basically, when you can start tapping into that, you will know who you are. You will know your true nature in that stillness. To me, I come out of it. As a child, I was poisoned by inoculations. I was in a coma for about a month. I survived that one. Later on, within another 2 years, I was sliced open with a 14-inch scar on my leg. My grandmother sewed me up. There was no doctors. I was in another coma. Basically, I was completely compromised as an individual, dietary intake and otherwise. And basically, I had autism. I didn't start speaking till I was around 16, 17. And you can imagine how difficult it is to articulate yourself when you don't have any language foundation. My subconscious, which is a storage device for information, was basically running on pretty close to empty. I took language like forever. You know where I got rescued? Because I was, of all things, I was an insomniac. And why? Because the only thing that gave me a blast at that time was, yes, the good old coffee. Coffee is, when fully understood, not that I'm advocating alkalizing instead of using alkaloids, but I didn't know anything about alkalizing. The alkaloids temporarily neutralize acidity, and it gives you increased mental acuity and increased physical power. This is well accrued. Much better choice without aging and devastation is the usage of green drinks. Alkalize yourself. That is the way to go as an individual. But anyway, so I didn't know anything better. So I by 12, 13, I started drinking. By the time I was 16, I was having kidney bags. I was having liver lines. I was having ongoing migraines, and at the same time, insomniac. So I said, I'm aging rapidly. I got to figure out, what's going on. And I figured sleep was very important. I didn't know I could go to bed at 10, 11. I couldn't fall asleep till 4, 5 o'clock, sleeping an hour. And especially on the deadly Lithuanian diet that I was on, which was also immersing into American SAD diet. So I came to America at the age of 10. So anyways, so I started studying in the libraries. I would go to the library because that was one place that I discovered on my own, that they had books and they had pictures, magazines. So I would look at stuff, not understanding really, but I was incentivized because by this adventure. But in time, I discovered Russian research on sleep deprivation and also Russian research on alternative to sleep, but that didn't, I volunteered as a subject, but finally what I noticed that animals actually don't sleep, they rest. And that was the thing. I said, I got to master rest. And as I started practicing rest, it was difficult initially, but I relaxed my body. Then I started quieting my mind. I quieted my emotions. And next thing I know, after about 3 months of practicing this every night, instead of going to sleep, I would just practice doing relaxation and stilling my mind. I just started focusing on the stillness and listening to the sound of my breath. And one morning I got up and wow, all of a sudden I wrote it was about 30-line poem that dealt with the chakras or the sacred channels within your body. I didn't know what that was all about, but and I wrote it in Lithuanian. It was pretty amazing piece of work. And then I started experimenting. Now I started experimenting with, in terms of, in school also, I noticed that if I didn't eat, my brain power would increase. So when exams came around or time to study, I just stopped eating. So I was always kind of underweight. But all of a sudden, they took me from what they call mentally challenged classes into academic. And then from academic, I was transferred to honors, and I was winning all kind of prizes in things like in mathematics, in geology, physics, and I ended up deciding to go to college with a B average in high school, whereas I was completely held back 3 years in grammar school, and the only reason I advanced, I managed to do some cheating in the classes. So what I'm saying is that with meditation and fasting and getting on a whole food plant-based diet, staying away from all those oils, which is physicians, PCRM.org said there is no such thing as good oils. You get more than enough quality oils from your food that you ingest. Matter of fact, all the seeds have quite a bit of oil, way too much. And what you need to do is soak all your seeds overnight and either germinate them, or just after soaking, the enzymes that are in the seeds, they convert the fat into essential fatty acids and small chain fatty acids that are very absorbable, and they play a key role in developing proper hormones, proper cholesterol levels, and basically are not depositing throughout your whole body system. Whereas the ones that are, whether it's olive oil or any kind of oil, you want to minimize the intake of that stuff. You want to always emphasize whole foods. And whole foods means also, nobody understands that cooking food is called processed food. When you're eating, everybody says, oh, I don't want to eat processed food. Well, hell, you're doing all the processing in your kitchen. It's crazy. But people are so dumbed down, their brain is running on empty, majority of the people, because they don't know who they are. They don't meditate. They don't take time to go into nature. They don't take time to.
I completely agree.
People are asleep.
So when is the last time you ate cooked food?
Excuse me?
So when is the last time you ate cooked food?
Yesterday.
And what kind of cooked food do you eat?
Basically, all my meals that I have ever eaten that are cooked food, they're enzymatically active. So I either use fermented foods with the meal, or else I use digestive enzyme, which assures that it's going to be completely leaving no track marks in my system. And basically, I would say sweet potatoes, which is the number one, like 85% of the carbohydrates consumed in the longevity areas and the blue zones, is basically sweet potato and yams. So sweet potato and yams would be my favorite choice. And the other one would be, basically, I soak the beans and I sprout them for a day or so, and then I would cook them until they're soft. So that would be the things. But I would take digestive enzymes or my own kimchi or sauerkraut that I always make myself. I consume that stuff on a daily basis because they're so important. Having diversity of microbial cultures inside of your body. they're the most important contributors to overall health. So the whole idea as far as health is concerned, small meals or intermittent fasting, reducing to either eating no more than 2 meals per day or even 1 meal per day. There's a website. All you do is do a Google search, strongest man 1 meal per day vegan. This guy has over 30 years, has been the strongest in deadlifting. Basically, he's a vegan and he's only consumed one meal per day, about 1,500 calories per day. And he's big, huge hunk, because so much unbelievable stuff occurs once you fasted for at least 14 hours. And when you're doing, fasting 1 meal doing 1 meal per day, then you're fasting basically 23 hours. And during that time, your natural, first of all, stem cell activity increases radically. Enzymes now start that would normally have been utilized in digestive, and they basically become proactive in supporting immune and detoxification. And also human growth hormone production is huge. So basically, and also your energy increases. The amount of sleep that you need diminishes radically. We're looking at 4 hours, 6 hours, depending on how high of a workout that you are engaged in. So basically,
yes. Sorry, I just want to ask you real quick, because I've always wanted to ask you. I want to backtrack about the menstrual periods real quick. I'm curious, why and when do you think that women started experiencing menstrual cycles if they are not supposed to be happening, if it is toxins being released from the body? When and why do you think we started experiencing this as a human race, women?
Well, it's definitely related. First of all, many of the more primitive cultures, the menstrual started much later in life. Even if you go historically back, the menstruation would start around 18 to 20 years of age, whereas right now on a processed food diet, it could start at ages as early as 9 and 10. And some of the individuals, some of the young girls who are having menstrual flows that are lasting 2 weeks, and you have also the menstrual disorders that are disabling women for three of the four weeks, to the point where they're quite dysfunctional, and it's altogether common. And all you need to do is have a little interference. Like I said, the simple interference would have been just taking basically vitamin C complex, and you'll see reduction within a month of this heavy flow. But the more quality is your diet, the less is the flow. So, but what started it all is basically consuming enzyme-less nutrition and processed nutrition. And basically, you got to look at also even the subject of longevity. You go back to the times of early history of Europe. How long people lived on the average 25 to 35 years of age. At that time, because they were on a heavy starch-oriented diet, and all of it cooked. What happens when you're eating cooked food? The first thing that happens is and this is called post-meal leukocytosis. Basically, your white blood cell count, which is an active indication of inflammatory condition, goes up by 300 to 800%. And what these white blood cells do is now they act like little golf carts, and they take off and harvest enzymes out of the metabolic pool throughout your whole system and bring it over to gastric juices to help digestion, and also into the pancreas to build up adequate level of enzymes in order to carry off digestion. So basically, the process, the more enzymeless is your diet, the less rebuilding you get of your GI tract, and now you start getting inflammatory condition, leaky gut syndrome, and what you're doing is colitis and all kind of inflammatory conditions. You're thinning the intestinal tract lining. Your body is in a continuous process of rebuilding. Your mouth is every 24 hours is completely rebuilt. Your skin is rebuilt every 3 to 7 days, depending on your dietary and lifestyle choices. It needs tons of enzymes. It needs tons of protein. And you're not in a form of protein. It needs in a form of pre-digested amino acids. The better is the quality of your nutrition, the better you're going to have your protein supplied. And on a good high fiber, diversified plant-based diet, Dr. Oolong and Huxley, two anthropological nutritionists, studied Papua New Guineas. They found that in the friendly bacteria, we're manufacturing over 30 grams of protein on a daily basis in the form of amino acids, peptides. And this is actually almost more than enough to supply your basic amino acids needs in order to healthy living. So basically, what we're looking at, when you're not doing that, then your body gets flooded with incompletely metabolized foods into your system, and menstruation is a form of basically preparing the body for birthing, and the endometrium gets reabsorbed completely when you're on a super healthy diet. There's no hemorrhaging. When you have an unhealthy diet, what happens is that the endometrium ends up going through what they call varicosity of arterioles, and they end up basically fragmenting and causing leakage and bleeding. And the more damage to the endometrium, the bigger is the menstrual flow. When you don't have this kind of condition, Dr. Beeler, in his book "Food is Your Best Medicine," MD, he says on a high protein diet, you're going to have a very thick blood flow. On a high starch diet, you're going to have a high basically high light color blood flow. But basically, when you there's a book written by a PhD, Dr. Bernard Russell. It's called Mysteries of Menstruation: The Physiological Enigma of Woman. You can get it on even on Amazon, I think, but you can get it from Health Research. Basically, Health Research is the publishing house, and it's fantastic documentations. I mean, I done a study with women. They were we started off with 90 women who were non-menstruating. All of them, they were healthy athletes between the ages of 18 and 35. And they were all non-menstruating, and basically only 60% of them, in other words, only 60 of them continued to stay on the protocol, which was a 1-year study. I did this with another woman. Her name was Terry, and basically we gave each woman a basal thermometer that she would check, and also the muco discharge that she would check, and basically which was a test to make sure they had fertility. None of them were sterile. In other words, they were all fertile, indicated by the basal temperature and the muco discharge that takes place during the fertility period. So we saw no interference with reproduction. And if you wanted to have also, there was another, we never published this stuff, but this was basically acquisition of information. Another interesting, in Austin, Texas, there was a huge, basically a vegan raw foodist community. And and what we found was interesting was enough is that they were into basically a very much into salads and fruit and stuff like that. And over 85% of the births that took place, they were all girls, whereas the ones who consumed more such things as nuts, seed cheeses, and sprouted grains, they produce males. And this is kind of in a Japanese or Oriental philosophy, is that when your diet is yang, you go yang, in other words, dense, you will produce males. When it's yin, you'll produce females. One of my good friends over there, they were fruitarians living on the big island, Hawaii. They had 5 girls. All of them graduated with honors, got scholarships to go through college, and brilliant individuals. But like I said, all because they were just eating fruit and some salads, and that was their dietary orientation. But they lived and also in nature, in clean air. They didn't have the environmental pollution that is having right now. Basically, I personally think we need a lot of new defensive strategies to, number one, to be able to consume more oxygen, because oxygen has diminished, but it went off from 21%, which was in the 1950s, to oxygen levels between 10 and 15% in terms of what we have in the air. And that's due to all the industrial impact that we have had, and also destroying like 60% of the oceans right now are dead oceans. 85 to 90% of the oxygen is produced by phytoplanktons, and these are important contributors, and oxygen levels continues to diminish. So doing regular pranayama, breathing exercises, but not running around and basically participating in any kind of like those events where you're running 25, 35, 40 miles, especially within city environment. All you're doing is now inhaling 2 to 3 times more poisons out of the air than a person who would be doing in an air conditioned or air filtered room doing pranayama. So you're looking at a very way of threatening your overall health. But
wow, thank you.
I hope that helps you to understand a little bit about the menstruation issue. Basically, it's an eliminative process, and basically it just can go on for so long before you run out of nutrient profile, and the toxemia is so high. But I read in medical journals in the editorial section where this woman, she was in her 50s, okay? She had already gone into menopause, and she has some guy who's a farmer, and he's a raw foodist farmer. He falls in love with this woman, and they get married. She takes over the gardening, and she just loves eating all that raw food. The next thing you know, her menstrual returns for a couple months, and then that disappears. And then the next thing you know, she was in her mid-50s. She's pregnant, gave birth to a beautiful child. This whole idea of everything is permanent and nothing, we are just capable of unbelievable regeneration, resurrection, youthing, all kind of possibilities. And I have been one that has been experimented with all kind of different things in my life in order to show, what can be helpful to individuals. But the biggest thing is basically getting quality protein. That would be from soaked seeds and nuts, from sprouts, or even just a high diversified fiber diet. And one of the best books on the subject of fiber, written by Dr. Will Bulshevitz, it's a bestseller book, and it's the best. And the guy became a vegan. The only reason he became a vegan because the best influence on healthy gastrointestinal tract is diversity of fiber, and also becoming totally vegan. And the book is called Fiber Fuel. It's like one of the most dynamic books that you could imagine, a gastroenterologist. What is interesting is right now the best therapeutic tool that is available for the medical community, it's not drugs, it's poop, it's fecal transplant. And they're getting such great results with with all the chronic diseases that they tested on. They gotten over 95% success. You can listen to a podcast on School of Greatness, and that does an interview of Dr. Will Bulshevitz, and he talks about all this research that is happening. I mean, because it's all microbial, and microbial is all about enzymes and also digesting and creating proteins within your system, from fixing the nitrogen in the air and creating amino acids, enzymes, proteins. Hello, I think I lost you.
Oh, sorry. No, my mom called. Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. So I want to ask you real quick. I loved that podcast, The School of Greatness with Will. That was an amazing one. I wanted to ask you real quick, do you believe that it's possible that someone can eat too much fruit? How do you feel about fruit and somebody eating a predominantly fruit-based diet?
Well, first of all, I don't, number one, as you will read in Survival, I do not under any circumstance advocate a raw fruit diet. And basically you're pushing yourself, the healthy consumption is maybe 1 to 2 cups, at most 3 cups of fruit per day. And secondly, what happens when you're utilizing a lot of the fruit in your diet, you're encouraging proliferation of yeast, which is going to be making alcohol in your system, within your gastrointestinal tract, and also it's going to discourage the proliferation of your friendly bacteria, which is the major defense team that enables rejuvenation and regeneration. If you're going to be doing a whole bunch of fruit, then make sure you don't. First of all, you eat the fruit ripe, not overripe or underripe, but ripe, preferably picked from the trees that you have in your vicinity, and preferably eating local fruit. But the healthiest fruit are cucumbers, zucchinis, ripe peppers, ripe tomatoes. These are super fruits. And then the other ones that I really feel are fantastic is the melon family. Eat them alone or leave them alone, basically. So and at the same time, like I said, small meals too. Like I remember in the days when I was just getting started. I mean, my God, I would sit down and eat maybe 4 to 7 mangoes. They were quite good size, and I would be just totally out of my mind. Both a sugar rush, an acid rush, and just all I would do, just either get sick or just end up sleeping it off. Well, right now I'll have a mango, but at most I'll have 1 mango, and that would be the extent. Or I'll have a banana, cuadrados we have on our property. I have mangoes, cuadrados, guanabana, but we eat small margins of it, which is beautiful. It's very healthy, a part of a diverse nutritional program. But the big things are the fruity vegetables that are extremely beneficial, because as a rule, when they're ripe, they're always alkalizing. And alkalinity is a very key driving force toward charging up your energy of your cells, and that determines the muscle power that you can output.
Thank you so much. Okay, my last question for you is, so in your book, you talk a lot about the healing power of the body, of love, of, meditation and rest, and all of the things that are natural and are truth. You're obviously a truth seeker. And so I'm curious, how can people know what the truth is in this world of so much conflicting information? There is so many studies proving everything wrong, right? There's one study proving something right and another study proving it wrong. And so I'm curious, how do you know when something is the truth? How do you decipher truth?
Well, there's a lot of different levels of knowledge, and the highest level of knowledge is in a book written by David. The book is called Power versus Force, and basically, and in it, it's usage of kinesiology, which is muscle testing. I've used kinesiology for over 40 years as a way of determining what is true or what is false. For me, it is a really good, strong background material. Secondly, I use when I read scientific research, I always look at who's sponsoring the research, and basically how and what kind of results. I mean, if a coffee company sponsors the research showing the benefits of coffee and caffeine, one has to be suspicious, because they are already vested. Matter of fact, there's on the web science research, skepticism, where majority of the research is basically driven by just proving what is really intended to market, whether it's a drug or something else. And basically, when you put in anything that is contrary to nature, you got to start off always with nature. I mean, how close is this posture that they're advocating to what is found in nature? And the further away from nature, the more it's going to be something that'll give you maybe a temporary benefit, like coffee. You can, or even a cigarette. A cigarette will give you a temporary benefit for 10 minutes with the nicotine, and gets you addicted into a lifetime history of related all kind of health problems. And the same thing with the related caffeine, or the blast that you get from all the different research related with psychedelics. Now that stuff has its own overall benefits, especially when you're doing micro dosing. Then the creativity soars like crazy, but it's in micro dosing, not the kind of levels that it's utilized for recreation. Recreation, it just means that you want to numb yourself and be stupid. That's okay. It's a choice that you want to make. But then there's the creative usage of just micro, basically very minor kind of impact. And that's true of basically many of the herbal plants that are available in nature. I watch individuals who are eating things that were considered toxic leaves, but they were consuming it at such micro dosing that it was providing medicinal or in other words, therapeutic benefit, and or very radical increase in creativity, vitality, and without having any damaging effects. So Dr. Hawkins was the guy that I was trying to recall. He's written 3 books, exceptional scholar of power versus force. Just recently passed away. It's all about consciousness, and basically, and you can explore that. There's available it's muscle testing or kinesiology. Basically, will help you to determine what is true or false for yourself, instead of relying on any kind of medical models, relying on anything but your own truth, because your own truth is very unique. We're all individualized biologically, but at the same time, there's a common foundation. There's a good reason that in the Genesis I-29, it tells you that the greens and the berries and all that's going to be food for humans. And at the same time, in the greatest text in the world, Bhagavad Gita, it tells you there's 3 levels of diet, that it would be Rajasic, Tamasic, and Sattvic. The Tamasic is cooked and overcooked, and basically it says such individuals are incapable of doing creative or spiritual work. The Rajasic is the warriors. These are the unsustainable politicians, the warriors who basically are into killing, into destroying, creating an unsustainable planet. And Sattvic is eating the food from the gods. And the last level is biogenic food. That's part of my Essene ministry. I'm a bishop of the Essene order, just to mention that. And basically, our tenets are that the highest is, besides the 3 levels that I mentioned, there is the 4th one, which is biogenic, which is basically food that is living at the time of intake, and that would be the microgreens, but especially the sprouts, the sprouted foods, and also the fermented food. These are, but they have to, then the fermented food has to be used with greatest deal of reservation, because you need so very little. Most people are overdoing, because it's going to have too much of an acidic effect. We can consume 20 to 30% of our diet from acidic foods, but once you start getting into drinking kombucha tea like 3, 4, 5 times a day, you're going to have all kind of internal damages being done to your system. Maybe 2 ounces a couple times a day might be nice, but people have gone crazy with abuse of the fermented foods, and they're going to get hit by it like a bombshell eventually from over exaggerated consumption, because their diet is so acidic, and they're further acidifying themselves with these products.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. Okay, so I have learned a lot. I've taken a lot of notes, and I just want to say, Viktoras, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me. You're a living legend, and it's an honor to speak with someone like you. Everyone, please go.
I just want to honor you in a sense that I got your birthday. It's 3/28/1985. You are an exceptional individual, and I would like to give you a reading whenever time allows it on your privacy, and you'll see. much more clear your dharma, your destiny, who you are as an individual. It's a very exciting adventure to be participating with you.
Oh my gosh, I would love that. I would really love that. Thank you so much. And by the way, I met you about 10 years ago in New York City. You signed a copy of my book, and you were so kind to me, and you were so nice. And I saw you speak, and it really changed my life and inspired me. So thank you so much, Viktoras. I really appreciate you. It's such an honor.
Well,
Yes.
people can connect with me by way of email, by phone. You can give the contact, and we do retreats or personally designed retreats for as many as 1 or 2 people at a time, basically to experience whatever you want to experience. And that's my specialty, creating individualized, exciting adventures into inner consciousness and life transformation.
Wow. Where do you do these retreats? In Costa Rica?
Yes. Yeah,
Wow.
it's first of all, it's a blue zone, so it's noted for not a high longevity. There's many people over 100 years of age. It's also noted for health, consciousness, quality of air, organic food. We get organic food from over 45 different farms available on a weekly basis, delivered within about 36 hours from harvest to our kitchens. So it's beautiful.
Incredible. Wow. Okay. I will definitely leave your information below for everyone to check out your website, to email you. And I just want to say thank you again. You're such a beautiful, knowledgeable, kind, incredible person. And I really am honored to
Well,
speak
it's
with
been
someone like
fun.
you. Thank you
It's
so much,
been fun,
Victoria.
and keep sharing the love and keep sharing the light, because we need to increase our number who are going to be surviving, and vegans have the greatest chance of surviving the cataclysms that are coming our way, and they're not decades away, they're months away. So be prepared, learn as much as you can about consciousness and survival strategies, minimalism, sustainability, and all these good things, and just keep reaching deeper and deeper into your stillness. Love is the way, and we are the ones who the universe has been waiting for. God bless you.
Thank you so much. Bye.